We know.
All right. Great. So just officially started. Looks like we got some people coming in now.
Brianna knows the time zone, right?
Oops. Probably took it off.
Katie, is Donna hopping on as a panelist? I
That's a
promote her
good
to
question.
panels?
We didn't talk about that.
Okay. Donna, if you want to be on as a panelist, feel free to type in the chat and I can promote you because it looks like she's on now.
Oh, cool.
Julian, are you from Ohio?
Forgot I was on mute. No, ma'am, I'm not. I am from Kansas City, Missouri.
Nice.
How do I mute this?
All right, Donna is hopping on now. You might be able to make your notifications like not come through. What is that called? Like night mode or whatever. Hey Donna.
Hey, how's it going, gang? Hi, Julian. How are you? We've never met.
How you doing today? I'm doing well.
Good, good, good. Are you in good shape?
I am. I'm trying my best to stay in shape.
You and all of us.
Oh,
Oh,
Kirsten, Brianna just messaged us in the chat.
Oh, does she need to be promoted as well?
Yes, I think so.
Okay, great. All right.
Are you also looking for Clarice?
Yes.
Go.
I'm sorry, Maurice and Clarette.
Let's see.
And Katie?
I don't see him on yet.
Okay, and so Brianna's on. How about, we got Julia.
Hey, Brianna.
So Maurice is the only one missing.
Hi, how you doing?
Good. How are
Yeah,
you?
there she is. Hi, Brianna.
I'm good.
I just asked Julian whether he was in good shape. Are you in good shape?
Mhm.
This is all about getting ready.
Awesome.
And Katie, by any chance? Did you connect with Maurice?
I couldn't get a hold of him, no.
I wonder if Dave could text him.
You have his phone number, right, Katie?
Yes, I didn't have a chance to reach out to him today. I emailed him a couple of times.
What I'm saying is, can you message him through his phone number?
I could, yeah, I could text him.
I just let Dave know because I'm pretty sure he's got his cell. He's gonna try him.
Okay.
Oh, is Dave gonna? Okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I think we need to try to start on time.
Yeah.
So you tell me when you're ready to go live, and I'll start with my open. And Katie, you can explain that we're waiting on Maurice.
We're already live. There's 44 people on already, so we're already ready to go.
Can they see us?
Yeah,
All set?
they could see us and everything. See and hear us. Yeah.
All right, let me start, everyone. This is welcome. My name is Donna Lopiano, and as president of the Drake Group, I'm delighted to welcome our attendees and panelists to the Drake Group webinar series on critical issues in collegiate athletics hosted by LRT Sports. As defenders of academic integrity and athlete protection in sport, Drake is committed to working with Congress to put pressure on the college athletic system to end the educationally and economically exploitive practices that do harm to college athletes. If you aren't familiar with the Drake Group or LRT Sports, we will provide you with links at the end of the program so you can learn more and hopefully help support our efforts. But this entire hour is for us to pick the brains of our athlete panelists. So let me ask Kirsten Sayers, the founder and CEO of LRT Sports, to introduce our moderator.
I was on mute, sorry. Hello, everyone. I am excited that you're all here. Thank you for joining us. Everybody that's a panelist, again, thank you for joining us. Super excited about this tonight. I know for LRT Sports, this is a subject that has been near and dear to our hearts. Katie, not only is she moderating tonight and works for the Drake Group, but she also freelances for LRT Sports and hits on a lot of topics surrounding NCAA name, image, and likeness specifically, and then also just NCAA rules in general. So we're very excited. Just a quick side note, if you have any questions for tonight, try and keep it in the Q&A box. I will also be checking the chat just to kind of moderate that as well, but it's better if you kind of put them in the Q&A box so Katie can keep up with it, and then we will kind of answer questions through that specifically. Other than that, I'd like to introduce Katie Lever. As mentioned, she works for the Drake Group as well as LRT Sports, and she will be moderating tonight's event. She has moderated a ton of events at this point and does a great job. So again, if any questions, feel free to write in the Q&A box, and I'll give her the floor.
All right, thank you so much, Kirsten and Donna, and welcome everybody to the second webinar in our series, Millionaires or Minimum Wage, Current and Former Athletes Speak Out About College Athlete Compensation. As you all may know, prior to July 1st, which was just 8 weeks ago, any college athlete who accepted money in exchange for endorsing a product or service to use their name, image, and likeness in any way for compensation would have been declared ineligible to play college sports. But today, because of a landmark Supreme Court decision and numerous state laws that have passed allowing college athletes the right to monetize their NILs, college athletes cannot lose their eligibility for doing so. And we're entering a brave new world of outside employment opportunities for college athletes. Our panelists are here to let you know whether college athletes are ready to take advantage of the opportunity. So let me go ahead and introduce them to you really quickly. We are waiting on MAURICE CLARETT, who is an acclaimed author and a former Ohio State football player. BRIANNA ELLIS is a sophomore point guard on the University of New Orleans Privateers women's basketball team and a political science and psychology major. Julian Ross is a fifth-year senior running back at Ohio University and a sports management major. And Julie Summer is a former four-time NCAA All-American swimmer for the University of Texas Longhorns and U.S. national team. And she's currently a lawyer in Seattle. So we're going to start with a 30-minute panel discussion during which each panelist will respond to a question or two from me. Then we're going to jump into audience Q&A. Just like Kirsten said, please use the Q&A feature for that. And starting now, you can submit questions for the Q&A if you would like to. And you can also use the chat room to speak to each other during the panel. I'd also like to add that everybody involved in this panel, everybody you see on the screen right now, is either a current or former college athlete, which is super, super rare in conversations about athlete rights. So we're very pleased for this representation today and really excited to hear what everybody has to say. And on an additional note, today is also Women's Equality Day. So why don't we start off by asking Julie some questions about Title IX. Does that sound good, Julie?
Absolutely. I hope Maurice is able to join us here quickly, but thank you, Katie. Great quality, my Drake colleague. Happy to be here with you, Brianna, and soon to be Maurice and Julian. So yeah, happy Women's Equality Day. Great to be here and talk about the issue of gender equity on this commemorative day, which commemorates the passage of the 19th Amendment for women seeking all rights and privileges, including the right to vote. It celebrates the journey really of women's equality in our socioeconomic structure of our country. And when you bring that back to college sports, we still have a ways to go with regards to Title IX compliance and gender equity. Just want to make sure that everybody's clear that Title IX, what's key here to remember is that Title IX is separate from NIL rights. Hey, Maurice. And so Title IX is a federal law. It's been on the books for almost 50 years. And simply put, it prohibits sex discrimination in education in the United States. It applies to athletics in high school and colleges. It applies in terms of both participation and access, as well as other areas on campuses. And it's important to point out that the opportunity that I had and that Brianna currently has are still not available to every young girl who wishes to pursue her dream of competing at the collegiate level. And separately from NIL rights and gender equity implications, it needs to be noted that there's still widespread gender inequities in college sports. There's been gains made for sure, it was 1972 when it was passed. And there's now 10 times more girls and women participating at the high school and collegiate level since 1972. But even with those hard-fought gains, it wasn't just a law passed and it magically, these opportunities appeared. People fought for these opportunities after the law passed in order for institutions to come into compliance. But even with those hard-fought gains, according to statistics, the organization Champion Women tracks this closely. There are approximately 90% of colleges and universities still out of compliance. And when you look at the scholarships alone, those are actually some really big numbers. And it's not acceptable in 2021. It's not a lack of interest in women's sports. It's not a lack of interest in opportunity. It's a lack of opportunity, period. So it's important to recognize that. And of course, I know everybody knows the well-established benefits of girls and women competing. It's the same that men get, right? It's the physical and mental benefits, the self-esteem, the confidence. It's shown actually to show lower rates of depression for girls who participate at a young age. Not to mention the educational benefits. Studies show that girls graduate from high school at a 20% higher rate when they participate in sports. But again, it's important to note that Title IX is separate from NIL rights, and universities still need to comply with Title IX.
Mm-hmm. So Julie, before July 1st, there was a lot of speculation about how NIL would be harmful to female athletes because of Title IX. How have female college athletes debunked that myth so far? And what does that say about the marketability of women's sports?
Absolutely. We're still very much in the nascency of NIL rights. We're less than 2 months into it. So I think there's still yet a lot to be seen. But, we knew ahead of time, Katie, that this was also good for women, just like it was good for men, right? Similar to Title IX, NIL rights are about justice and equity. And name, image, and likeness rights are great for female athletes in the same way that they're great for male athletes. Now, every college athlete has the basic ability to control their own name, image, and likeness. This is in regards to endorsement opportunities, publicity, as well as self-employment opportunities. And those rights didn't exist prior to this year for NCAA athletes. So again, we're still early in the nascency of it, but there's already women are benefiting in similar ways that men are. Can compare the numbers, but of course, that's yet to be seen as to how those really start to evolve over time. It's driven by different metrics, social media, as athletes are educated in, marketing and how to promote themselves and how to engage with their communities. I think it'll be interesting to see how it evolves, but it's going to be good for women, just like it's good for men. That being said, no rights are not a Title IX issue until it is, right? But I see gender equity coming into play is that NIL rights be supported and applied in the same way for both men and women. And if you have equal opportunity, of course, do you have equitable and ill rights for both men and women? So the issue goes to the foundation of equal opportunity at institutions for women, as well as the promotion, the marketing, group licensing deals. Institutional marks may be available to all, and that's great. But looking at expenditures, looking at the opportunities, that also needs to be examined. And so it does come back to scholarships, expenditures, and promotional activities. You come back to the other flip side of what's happening at colleges and universities and this unfortunate trend of sports getting cuts. Women and Olympic men's sports, they shouldn't have to sue their school for just a fair shake at participating and competing. So if you're not equitably investing, creating opportunity, promoting, or attributing ad revenue even appropriately to championships for women, you're setting them up for failure.
Yeah, and we've definitely already seen athletes take advantage of NIL rights. So I want to pivot to Julian now. Are athletes excited about NIL opportunities, and have you or your teammates executed any NIL deals so far?
Yeah, first I want to say thank you guys for having me, but totally, sorry, excuse me. Yeah, I think all athletes across the country are actually super excited to be able to kind of capitalize based off of what they can do, based off on either on the field, court, or pool. But personally, we have had a lot of people on this team do deals also lot of student athletes across campus as well, especially, just being able to get it within the community. I think that's kind of big first. Whenever you're looking at these mid-majors, it's kind of hard to get those huge, big deals, obviously. But if you're not a 5-star recruit who's going to make 100, 200K, you just got to find what's right for you, but also fits your niche, especially. I think that's very important for athletes, especially.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And as you and Julie have both kind of alluded to, we're entering this uncharted territory, where athletes really are they're on their own. They're also getting some help. Lots of people don't know what to do. And so I wanted to ask Maurice, since you were the first person to challenge the NFL's draft eligibility rules, and now that we're watching the NCAA's amateur status rules crumble, are you concerned about unscrupulous agents and advisors kind of blurring the line between collegiate and professional sports?
I think that's going to happen. I think that's just a part of it. The upside for a lot of these guys, your guys who go to your Power 5 schools, the upside is so strong that I see agents and people just with large sums of money being able to mask deals to these guys to kind of get them affiliated either with some level of sponsorship or just to kind of lock them in to funnel money to them. So that's always went on. This kind of makes it easier, and you can kind of mask it into a promotional deal, a marketing deal. You can, I've suggested that, if I was in college, I would be getting after people who were in the insurance industry, car dealerships, or people who were within sales. I think that those people would align themselves with athletes relatively fast. And in today's market where everything is virtual, if you're an agent and you have a ton of money, or a ton of business owners and you want to get money to an athlete, it's not really hard. And I don't want to say unscrupulous because it can sound like kind of dismissive to agents, and they're just being creative with the rules that are played. But you better believe that with the amount of money that's being passed around between basketball players, baseball players, football players, and every other sport, that these people will go and chase these people down. And even with female athletes, I don't want to leave them out. You see now that everybody has a platform, everybody has a fan base, everybody has people back in their hometown who rooted for them. And if you can garner an audience, it doesn't matter if you're a male or a female, if you can become an entertainment, or if you can become entertaining, be it on TikTok, or any of these social platforms where people can sell a product, be it if you have a personality, be it if you're a male or a female, it doesn't matter. It's a level playing field, right? I think the natural thing is to say, hey, the guy has more value because he's seen more, he's visualized more. But in this day and age, when you're just looking to sell products to a certain demographic, if somebody who's trying to sell a product can connect with somebody who's connected to an audience that they want to get in front of, they're going to utilize that player. But even if I was a player as well, I want to add this on, just even for the young guys thinking, think of things that you can create yourself. Think of if you have a moniker, a name, a nickname, you have different products. You over there in Athens, there's a group of people who always love those kids when they're playing down there at OU or whatever university that they're at. And you don't have to hit a home run. You don't have to make $200,000, $300,000 for a deal. For you to pick up just additional money into your what is it called, the cost of attendance money. If you can pick up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 grand monthly just from managing different deals, and you can either put that money up or put it into the market, or get into some other investments, because most guys won't go. I think that stuff can serve these young guys well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so the focus of this panel series is mostly on name, image, and likeness, but the Drake Group and LRT Sports both believe that name, image, and likeness is only the beginning of college sports reform, and that there are many, many more issues that we need to address in order to reform college athletics. So I want to pivot to BRIANNA now and ask her, what reforms do you think are necessary to put college sports back on track?
Hi, I was going to say thank you for having me. There's a few that I kind of pick up on. I don't know everything, but just from being an athlete and just looking in my shoes, one of the biggest things that I would say for college athletes, and this is only at my university, I don't know how it is at other universities, but we're pretty adamant about having like balance between athletes' time and athletics, and also like time for themselves. You know what I mean? And so I know the University of New Orleans were pretty good on that, but that's not the case for a lot of colleges, whether it be Division I, Division II, Division III. It's really heinous. Like a lot of athletes that are going through a lot of mental health issues and depression and anxiety, just trying their best to balance school and to balance family and to balance, being away from home and whatever the case may be. So I would suggest that there should be more reform in that aspect, that is taking care of our athletes, because we kind of, sometimes some of us are seen as just being an athlete and being here for 4 years, and then we're off, and then they get the next person to recruit, when we're more than that, we're human. And it's really important that we take our mental health serious, and especially in the collegiate level, it is not a game, it is very competitive, and it requires the best of the best. So that's just one of the reforms that I would want to pursue and hopefully see a change in when it comes to college athletics. And this is just me just thinking in the air, but I know that, with the NCAA, with the NIL, how, athletes are starting to, promote themselves and get their brand out there. I think it would be a really great idea, maybe, if athletes, say they win a conference championship or say they win the whole thing, to get some level, some type of pension with that, since they work so hard and they dedicate their time and their efforts into competing. I feel as though that they should be rewarded in some way, shape, or form from the NCAA. So those are just my ideas, but yeah.
Yeah, thank you for that. Julian, do you see any issues in college sports that need reform?
I would say what would be kind of beneficial would be a student athlete kind of union base, just so we can all just kind of come together and find out what's needed within each conference or whatever. Just have the opportunity to kind of just face, especially like mental health. I know Brianna kind of touched on that, which is actually a very big deal. But just have an opportunity to really kind of speak our mind and have a conclusion based off what we would like to see. I think that would be helpful.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I'd like to toss this one up to anybody who'd like to answer. Can the NCAA be trusted with these reforms, or do we need an outside influence, like maybe congressional pressure, to get the job done?
Oh, I would say definitely congressional pressure. I feel like they would recognize it, but they wouldn't take as much initiative with it. And so I feel like having that congressional push would definitely provide a little bit more initiative and urgency.
What about you, Maurice? You've pushed back against rules before.
Yeah, right. I mean, God bless the NCAA, but I wouldn't want them to continue to be in charge of what's going on. I think you need some level of congressional pressure. I went to Washington fighting for this thing. This was right before COVID had hit. And this, I don't know, it's kind of like a crazy moment to even be on this panel to hear these younger people talk about this, that this is actually changing. It's actually a thing. This wasn't a thing 20 years ago. It makes me feel old when I say it, right? You know what I'm saying? So, but just to see how things have changed. But, the NCAA can't be in charge of this. You need a third party entity who doesn't have a vested interest, who can just say, hey, let me give advice, or let me reward kids or govern this thing appropriately based upon just viewing it as an independent entity. The NCAA has benefited greatly and largely off the backs of these kids for a number of years, and there's been a value exchange, and the argument has been what is the worth of the exchange. But to answer your previous question, I think reform needs to start. I don't never want to miss this. It's only education that saved my life. And I think that the athletes at every university I've been to, and I've been to a ton of them, I don't want to say every, I'll say probably 98% of them, right? They don't get an adequate education. They major in eligibility. And most of these young people, when they come on campus, they think that they're manipulating the system. But you have an academic support staff who are filtering these kids into these nonsense majors. And once they graduate and go back to their hometowns, they have nothing to offer more than football camps, basketball camps, and nothing else. They don't, this goes on more than anything else. Maybe that may help to combat mental health issues, that you're actually improving just the totality of yourself, and you're able to introduce yourself to the workforce. as a complete human being rather than just an athlete who's been shuffled into classes just to stay eligible. So if I can speak to one thing in reform before money, before anything, all that stuff comes as you improve yourself. But we need to do a better job of holding coaches and academic support staffs more accountable with the course selection that they give to these kids that does absolutely nothing for them when they graduate.
Yeah, the Drake Group is all about educational reform. So I'd like to bring it back to Julie and talk about gender equity reform, because you mentioned earlier that as the NIL landscape becomes the new normal, that gender equity might become an issue. How would that become an issue, and what can universities do to level the playing field?
Where I see it, again, we're still in the early nascency of NILs here, but where I see it coming in play is, again, the foundation of the equitable opportunities for women, and the promotion, the marketing, the educational side of that, the support of it, so supporting female athletes as well. And then, it could get tricky in some of the group licensing deals. So that'll be interesting to examine. But I think coming back to that, to second what Maurice said too, is that I think congressional action is, for so many reasons, it's what we really need at this moment. The problems are profound in college sports, way beyond name, image, and likeness. I think just that rollout shows how profound the problems are. And, beyond just a narrow NIL policy, we have so many varying state laws right now. Obviously, we're going to need a uniform national policy on that. But I think for what's at stake, it would be a mistake to only address a narrow NIL policy and walk away. That's not the whole story here. We have so many problems and instances through the years in different areas, which show the need for a hard look at college sports and the college sports system, from an academic standpoint, like Maurice just discussed, health and safety, racial, social, gender equity. And this is in addition to the critical need for clarity on name, image, and likeness policy. We definitely need federal action. And, the NCAA is basically declared independence right now from NIL restrictions. Yeah. So this burden is now falling on the institutions, and I'm sure they didn't want that. This wasn't what they had in mind, and that burden is, falling on compliance directors. Their job is already overwhelming. So to put this on them and to be in this area right now, it's obviously unworkable in the long term. So we need to not only consider the short-term benefits of revenue generation of NIL rights, but also look at the long-term protections and support, which are so needed, for these young people making the sacrifices of their bodies, of their minds, and of their time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And to be clear, name, image, and likeness activity is not the same as athletes being paid directly for participating in their sport. So Maurice, I'd like to ask you one more question. Should athletes get paid cash like the pros to play college sports, or are colleges and universities awarding scholarships limited to educational expenses the right way to go?
I think it should be a combination of both. They both have different value. I don't want to get too deep and move the needle, but I don't think that these guys actually get an education. I think that they are in classes to become eligible in most cases. If you actually did a study on that, more people are just there to be eligible than they are to be educated. So I don't have a lot of value in saying that that's a fair exchange, because I was a part of the system, and I travel to university. I speak to people all the time. And I ask them what classes that they're in, and then when they tell me what classes that they're in, I just kind of laugh in the back of my brain, and I say, this is the same thing going on. But I definitely believe they should be paid, and they should be paid like any other human being in this world. If you are a part of a system, and we could take any industry, if you are a part of driving revenue to the bottom line of anything, you should be compensated accordingly based on your value to that, right? And so for us to make it a thing is a thing, right? I don't see how we don't understand that. If you are going to go in higher education, somebody would look at your resume, somebody would say, this person has this value to this department. And then based on their experience and tenure and what they feel that they can market that professor or whoever it is, they'll pay them accordingly. If I want to be in, any industry in America, we all get that. But you have some of the smartest people in the world who deal in athletics, who deal in education, and who do this for a living. They act like it's so hard to create a value and to pay a person. And I find it laughable that we even are even having this conversation, which makes me always get to the thing to say, hey, why is it hard to pay all these Black kids, right? Because it goes there. And it actually says that, if a kid was playing baseball, if they're playing hockey and they play these club sports and they got compensated in 1,000 different ways, it wouldn't be an issue. But when it comes to playing these young Black kids, it just becomes an issue, and I'm not the one, you'll never hear me on any platform ever talk about anything with racial, anything. I'm just not, I don't get into that conversation because it's like the never ending conversation. If somebody has racial issues, they'll just have them, right? But it makes me think and it makes me wonder when it comes to this, is that a problem? You know what I'm saying? And so my short answer is yes, but I don't think that the education that these people receive is of equivalent value.
All right, thank you all so much for your insight so far. We're about at that 30-minute mark, and we have some really fantastic questions in the Q&A. So we're going to go ahead and get started with that. Thank you everyone who has submitted questions, and you can still do so if you have any that you haven't submitted yet. There's one from Jerry Tipton here in the Q&A, and I'd like to ask Julian and Brianna this question. How disruptive could NIL be in a locker room? Is jealousy a possibility? And if so, how should it be dealt with? Let's start with you, Julian.
Honestly, when it comes to the NIL deals and kind of just making money, there's always just that kind of universal rule that you just kind of don't count anybody else's pocket. And so, there hasn't really been, personally, it hasn't been any issues whatsoever in our locker room that I'm having, with the football team. I haven't heard of anything around campus. But I don't see NIL being a big deal towards jealousy or, causing any conflict within the team because, every person can create value for themselves. And so I know we had talked about that earlier, but just having that niche, being able to promote yourself either on social media or going out there and starting your own business, you have that same opportunity that anybody else does. And so, you just have to be able to capitalize on top of it. So it always does come down to that, just don't look at anybody else's pocket at the end of the day.
Mind your own business. That's always good advice. What about you, Brianna? What do you think?
I would have to agree with Julian because we're a little bit older. Like we still are kids to a lot of other adults, but we're also adult enough to understand money and understand that our brands are all different. Somebody could be making money off of modeling. Somebody could be a brand ambassador. Somebody could have their own clothing line or home decor company. So we all have different niches. And that's kind of like what the whole focal point is just to find out what your brand is. Until you find that, and then you make your own money off of that, however much money you make, it really shouldn't matter. And there really isn't any jealousy because at the end of the day, my team, we're all teammates. And so we care about each other. We want to make sure that we see each other succeed. And that's all the NIL is. It's just to find a way to succeed outside of just our cost of attendance money and our tuition being paid off in our books. So yeah, there isn't really any jealousy when it comes to NIL.
Mm-hmm. That's good to hear. I heard that a lot leading up to July 1st that, we shouldn't pass NIL because it's going to cause drama in the locker room. So it's nice to hear that that's definitely not the case. So kind of going back to the broader conversation of college sports reform, there's a question from Connie Zotos, and Julie, I think you'll be a good person to answer this one. Do you think that coach abuse of athletes, physical, mental, or emotional, is a rare or significant problem in college athletics? And do you feel like you can report coach abuse to the administration without retaliation?
I'm sorry, you say Julianne or Julie?
Oh, Julie, I'm so sorry.
I was going to actually direct that to Julian, since he's a current athlete. Yes, I think that's an issue. I'm sorry, less inclined to report. Could you clarify that? Sorry, Katie.
Sorry, could you repeat that?
I'm sorry, I wanted you to clarify the part about reporting to coaches.
Oh yeah, do you feel that athletes can report coach abuse to the administration without retaliation?
I think that's tricky. I think in a lot of cases in certain institutions, they don't feel comfortable doing that. There's been issues in the past where, who is the Title IX office? Where are they? Are there anyone, is the person in charge of that? Do they actually have any type of pre-existing relationship with the athletes? So do they know them? Do they feel comfortable going to that person and reporting, whatever the issue might be. Yeah, I think that's an issue. I think it's an ongoing issue. And I would be curious to hear maybe what Julian and Brianna, what their thoughts might be on that, whether or not they have, actual personal experience with it, or anybody that they know.
I would say, I was reading the question, but now it's gone. But personally, I haven't seen anything of that sort here at Ohio University. But obviously, I can't speak for all the other universities and student athletes across the country. And so, I know it'd be difficult to report that type of thing, especially if you're considering certain situations like, oh, my playing time will go down a bit more, or I won't do this, or I won't be able to get this, or whatever the situation. It's kind of just that power over the student athlete. But, in order to kind of just take that power back, you have to do what you need to do. And that is report to administration. But in terms of, are coaches allowed to do these type of things, or should they do this type of things? Do they do these type of things? I hope not, because if you're going to go out here and coach student athletes, you have to have a love and passion to be able to interact with these student athletes. And so I hope that's not the case whatsoever.
Yeah, and Katie, really quickly, I know I'm not formally on the panel, but just wanted to bring up LRT Sports for those of you that don't know. So we're actually a rating and review platform for college coaches. So any athletes that are feeling like there might be retaliation from an administration or anything, they can come and write reviews about college coaches, and it's completely anonymous. So if an administration decides to check out our website or see anything, they can kind of go to our website and see how the players are feeling about the coaches, and the players have a safe space to speak anonymously. And we also do a lot of content creation, whether players choose to remain anonymous or tell stories later, or even while they're at their time, about mental health and coach abuse situations or anything. And that is something that we have been doing since 2014 now. So that's something that we're very passionate about. And Katie knows that too, but just wanted to interject on that specifically.
Brianna, I have a question that I'd like to hear you answer, because when you were talking about your ideas for reform, you emphasized mental health. So Annabelle Carter has a question. Will universities be required to provide each athlete with mental health services? I'd like to rephrase that and ask, is that the solution to the problem of college athlete mental health issues, is requiring universities to provide athletes with mental health services?
I think it's a good start, but I don't think it's the main solution. Even there's a lot of resources here on our campus, and there's still a lot of athletes who still don't feel comfortable going to those mental health resources, even though that is confidential. I would say just digging a little deeper with our athletes, forming a connection, because if you have these mental health resources, it kind of feels like, oh man, I'm talking to somebody that I've never spoken to ever in my life, and I have to tell them my business. So just having, whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's somebody with the athletic staff to talk to, whether it be a teammate, whether I know our coach, one day she just said, hey, there's no practice today, we're just gonna have a mental health day. And we're in New Orleans, so we went down to City Park and we had beignets, and we just had a moment to just relax and not be an athlete for a day. And that sounds kind of bad, but it's still good in a sense, because we're still human, we're still people, we still get burnt out, we have a lot of classes, we have to manage a lot of things. And so just having days like that, not necessarily a full day, but just little moments like that where we can connect together to talk to somebody and know that we're not alone in these situations is really essential in order for us to improve our mental health as athletes. And the resources, that's a good start, but just getting a little bit deeper would definitely help with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I know the audience signed up for an NIL panel tonight. There's just so much we can talk about in the broader sense of college sports reform. And Carl has a really good question here in the Q&A about the broader discussion of college sports reform. How do we hold university presidents and provosts accountable in these reform efforts? Maurice, why don't you go ahead and answer that one?
That's a tricky one. I really don't have a good answer for it. I don't. How do you hold them accountable into what specifically?
Just into making sure that they're looking out for the health and safety and just overall wellness of college athletes, and NIL included in that as well.
Yeah, it's tricky because there's a part of me that just says that they don't really care. and that more revenue generation and more the winning games is like what really matters, probably to the AD, to the athletic director. Winning games helps to increase the profile, which helps to increase the attendance, which helps to increase the businesses around the stadium. And I don't know. I know a lot of people commercially sit it there for this stuff, but a lot of people don't care. That's why you have it just sort of like this willy-nilly freestyling thing at this point. Like there's nobody who's coming out and said, "Hey, let me grab this thing by the horns." So I don't know. I don't really have a good answer. I don't like to give answers to things that I don't really have answers to.
No worries. What about you, Julie? What do you think?
There's so many things that I would want to express to college presidents as to why they should care about these issues. All around, just the profound reform that is so needed beyond just name, image, and likeness policy. We're all here because we care about the value of college sports and the college sport experience. And just want to note on a personal note about Maurice. I'm someone who also grew up in a small Eastern Ohio town, downstate, downriver, and even smaller than Youngstown, where Maurice grew up. And Maurice is such a great example of a former college athlete, an extraordinarily talented athlete. But he's also a remarkable example of the college athlete experience. We all know we go through it in college sports. We're all former or current college athletes. The work, physical, the mental, the demands, the sacrifice, dealing with pressure. And what Maurice took and learned from that experience about himself is now giving back, and he's changing people's lives. He's helping adults, he's helping children, with centers that he's opened in his hometown of Youngstown and Columbus. And it's a ripple effect in our society of opportunity and empowerment. He's now empowering other people's lives. And does it get any better than that? So I just think, if we can have a really strong collective voice that comes together and expresses all of these issues that really need to be addressed, regarding the NCAA, regarding the institutions, that we take this to the congressional effort. We need transparency, we need financial responsibility as we seek equity, as we seek preserving a healthy sport opportunity.
Can I say something?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, this was, I think it was with Brianna, I think it was a question that she answered. I've been advocating for a while for more athletes to get into the social work space. I definitely understand when they say that they don't feel comfortable engaging with therapists, social workers, or counselors. I think that there just may be a lifestyle disconnect, and with so much miseducation of our athletes, I wish more athletes would actually go through social work, counseling courses. It would help to figure themselves out. But then after, I wish the university would employ sort of like some peer-to-peer support. I think that would be advantageous to athletes feeling connected to somebody who understands the process. I still go to a therapist on a regular basis, and I just understand, like, even as a 37-year-old adult, I still feel a disconnect from somebody who I know is a professional, and I'm actually in the industry, and I hire counselors and social workers and everything. But when there's a social disconnect or just a lifestyle disconnect, you just don't feel comfortable, or you only get so far with certain people. And so if there's anything that I push, I wish more athletes, or I wish universities say, hey, let's get these kids down a social work path, and let's sort of create some opportunities for them to help athletes throughout their journey. And they have the resources to do this stuff if they really wanted to do it, if they really cared about just the development of these kids, post sports, and that's just my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because from my experience as a college athlete, mental health can be very tricky because you're balancing school and you're balancing your sport, and there's a lot of performance anxiety and just general stress that a lot of people don't understand. And then also as an athlete, you're always taught to be tough and to gut it out. And so sometimes seeking help for something that is really hard to describe sometimes can be difficult. And we have a good question in the chat about NIL and mental health. And I'd like to ask this to Julian and Brianna because they're kind of in the thick of NIL right now. But how might NIL impact students' mental health? Could it add possible financial stress, or could it possibly improve their students' lives and their families' lives? Brianna, why don't we start with you?
I say it could be a little bit of both, depending on the person. I feel as though if you're not responsible with money, this could be a big downfall. Or if you are, then this could be really, really great. I think it's more on the positive side though, as far as making money and, establishing your brand and what people want. You can influence a lot of people off of this, whether it be whatever your brand is. So let's say for me, big mental health. And so if I was, to really make money off of that, then I could potentially influence a bunch of people through social media, and that could help others, and with their mental health, and that could just be a ripple effect. So it could honestly it could be a really great thing, and you could really develop a big brand for yourself, and you can make a lot of money and you can influence others. Or it could really be your downfall if you're not smart with it, or if you don't have the right people in your circle to help you with this situation. So it really just depends on how you look at it.
Mm-hmm. Julian, how about you?
Like Brianna had talked about, the good things about it, but I know we had touched upon, possible negative effect of it is obviously when you are counting someone else's pocket. And so when you look at it, you're comparing yourself and what you're making and whatever deal someone else has. That obviously will cause some sort of strain because you start to feel as if you're not on the same level as them, or you start to feel as if you're not doing as well. And so I think that right there would just cause financial stress within itself. But, as Brianna did touch upon, also not having, some sort of financial knowledge or background behind it. And so I think it's important that we could try to do something like that. I know most universities and organizations sometimes don't have the funding to do that. And so I know some coaches will step up and try to provide that type of opportunity for student athletes. But overall, I think NIL could impact the student athlete's mental health. I think anything could impact the student athlete's mental health, as we are balancing so much every single day and just trying to just live our lives. But I think, just having the basic knowledge behind and financial knowledge as well, but also, maintaining a balance and understanding and being comfortable in who you are and what you're able to do, and being able to create value for yourself in that, and not looking at someone else's pocket, it definitely will kind of bring down your own stress level a bit.
Mm-hmm. Julian, you gave me the best segue to this next question, talking about everything that college athletes have to balance, because Sandy Thatcher has a question in the Q&A about balancing educational obligations with NIL opportunities. So Julie, I'd like you to answer this one. Now, with the addition of NILs to a practice schedule that eats deeply into time left for education, will the status of education for athletes be getting worse?
I don't think so, no. I think, and again, I think this is also really closely adjacent to mental health. It's about balance, right? And you're only going to have nil opportunities coming in if you're focusing as a student and doing well and staying eligible and doing well in your sport. So the focus should come first on your academics, doing your sport, doing the best you can, and then that comes as a result. And mental health is not a new concern with name, image, and likeness rights. If people are going to start saying that, I think it's important to note that, of course, it's going to be a balancing act, but it's what you make of it again. And I think making sure that athletes are educated in this area is really important. I think it would be disingenuous to say, if anyone's going to detract from NILs, to say that that's going to be a breaking point. On the mental side, that's a concern all along. Mental health is such a much more broader issue, in terms of health and safety. How they're doing in general, how they're doing with balancing, how they're doing in their sport, how their mental health is generally. Not, I don't think NILS is going to be the straw that breaks the back in terms of that, or in terms of balance. So I would say athletes are really good at balancing things. So. This is just a benefit that they're now availed, that has always been availed to every other student on campus. So, it's a good thing.
Yeah, Maurice, what do you think about that? Just the complications of balancing NIL with educational obligations?
I don't, like I say, I always look at the bottom line of everything. And with everything, the bottom line is for these universities to make money and win games. And these head coaches have so much pressure to do that. And with that being a factor, they drive a large part of these athletes' behavior. Everybody thinks that they're going to play pro, and everybody's going to think that they'll have an opportunity to do something more during the current state, right? And so, like, there's a natural imbalance that's going to come with that, understanding what the motivation is or what the bottom line is. The bottom line is to generate revenue, to get fans, to put people in seats, and it's a complicated thing. And I don't ever think that there will be balance, right? Unless you gave the coach a 20-year contract, you say, hey, you'll be here forever, whether you win, lose, or draw. And we're just here to develop young men and women, and everything will be wholesome. That will be a thing. The coach would think different about the development of the athlete if it was their kid inside of another sport. They would care about all these things, but just the structure, like there's no alignment within college sports, right? The motivate, like everything we're talking about on this panel, everybody knows it makes sense, right? Everybody knows it makes sense to take care of people. Everybody knows you have to not put these athletes in a super pressurized situations where you make them go crazy. But then on the flip side of the coin, the incentive for the people who are in charge of them is to do all of those things. And they only know to drive the athlete more, to drive the, to put them in the easiest classes so there's no strain, to make the name, image, and likeness thing not another factor that they have to fight against for an athlete's time. And they say, hey, you know, this guy could possibly have an ego, or this girl could possibly have an ego with these things. And they don't want those things as a result in their mix. And so I don't ever think that there will be balance. You know what I mean? I don't want to sound like Debbie Downer or like the harsh guy, but I just always, I look at like, what's the bottom line of everything? The bottom line is money. You know, with all these universities, with everybody who's talking about this, the bottom line is money. They say, who's incentivized that? The athletic director's job is to go out and raise funds. The head coach job is to win, so he has something to market, right? So the coach is saying, you know, hey, Julie and Brianna, y'all in here, y'all have to win. Win. So we have something to market to go get donations, right? So the coach isn't coming to say, and here's the fine balance. I was thinking about this earlier when they were talking. I was a guy that you can like, you know, you can yell at me and coach me hard. And I just came from that culture where I didn't care, right? And so I probably went crazy a few times. I didn't know it. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't a thing that you knew that was going on. But now you have people who are more aware that, you know, the stress, anxiety, and the long-term effects of what somebody's verbal abuse can do to you. Everybody didn't come up the same way. How that can impact the player, you know, now these things become a thing, but I'm pretty sure these coaches don't want to deal with that. A lot of these coaches who are in position, they're old school coaches. Let me get in your butt. Let me get in your face. Let me yell at you. Let me develop you. And I don't know. So I don't know. I have conflicted feelings about it, but to answer your question is, I don't think that there'll ever be any balance. And you put name, image, and likeness into the mix. I just think it just, a lot of coaches are not warm to it. You know, go listen to Dabo Sweeney.
Yeah, and just to kind of go off of that about balance and education as it pertains to NIL, it's also important that college athletes are educated about how to, you know, monetize their NILs while staying within the rules, and financial literacy is very, very important. And so we have a couple of questions from Brian Soso. Are your schools doing NIL training or 101 prep? Or are you having to do all the research yourself? I am going to toss this to the panelists, but I will say that LRT Sports has resources for this. So Kirsten, I don't know if you would want to put that link in the chat, but we do have resources designed to educate college athletes. But what about the actual college athletes right now? Are your schools doing any kind of training for NIL, Julian?
So we haven't really got too much into training with it, like but we have had certain talks about it, you know, certain things that we can and cannot do within it. And so not certain training, but just a lot of covering of the rules and definitely what opportunities you definitely can have.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Brianna?
Yeah, we've had a long discussion about monetizing, you know, our name, image, and likeness through compliance. And I think we have to take a financial literacy course, like every athlete has to take that now. So once we heard the news, you know, from NIL and, you know, monetizing off our name, image, and likeness, we took the course of action to take, you know, classes and to be educated on what is going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we have another question about NIL education from David Ridpath, who asks, what are the best ways a university can help athletes and students deal with NIL rights and income? So why don't we start with Julie on that one?
I'll echo what's already been said in terms of education. We're hearing a lot about the high profile athletes, right, getting the six-figure deals, but we've also heard statistics that the average nil income so far, again, we're less than 2 months into it, has been about $471 a month. That was for July. With the top athletes, may be making the six-figure deals. 88% of it's driven by social media. It's mostly been in football, but again, we're still very early on. We're going to see it happening in other sports, and as we've already discussed, driven by how people brand it and market themselves. I think it's important for athletes to make sure they're taking advantage of the right deals, the right opportunities, rather than every deal that comes along their way. And again, that just goes back to education. It's important that's done right, and I hope that we get a good federal policy soon, so that we know we have a little more direction than what we have right now, driven in our state system and the hands-off approach by the NCAA currently.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, Maurice? What are some steps that universities can take to help educate athletes about NIL?
I think what they're doing thus far, I think what they're doing thus far with giving basic education that they would probably give any other student, I think is the first step. One thing I was thinking about, I think that they can go out and grab the nature of probably the 5 to 10 deals that other athletes are getting or have benefited from. And I think that they should walk them through deal flow. Athletes don't have a lot of hands-on experience with just working through deals, working through contracts, understanding their own value. Like if somebody hit them up and said, hey, I want you to send a tweet out, there's no market to say what a tweet is worth, or how do you put a valuation on yourself. I think they should walk through stuff like that. I think you bring a small business owner, just like these young guys and girls are small businesses, right? And I think you should talk about small business. I think you should talk about credit. I think you should talk about establishing credit. And, through financial literacy, like I would be interested to see what that actually looks like, because that's a whole scope. You can go from understanding banking to understanding credit to understanding what's coming in and out of your account. There's just a ton of stuff. Put money into the market, just understanding what the market is. There's a ton of things that you can teach young men and women. And I can give my advice just from personal experience and what I've done to build my life up. But I think even bigger than that, it's just deal flow. Like if a guy has gotten, let's say, a deal with an insurance company. What did that look like? How much was it worth? Why was his value this? What did he do to generate the income? What was his responsibilities? You go through the same thing through cars, right? If you want to approach a car company, this is how you can present yourself. If you want to do an autograph session for yourself, this is what the market bears for you. You all can get together as a group of players. You don't need an agent. You can advertise to your own social media, drive the traffic yourself, buy pictures yourself, make sure they're licensed, sell stuff yourself. There's 1,000 different ways that these young men and women can do it. But like I said, I laughed when they both said they've gotten basic information, but they have nobody on the university saying, hey, let me teach you how to do it, right? There's no way that they would go hire a coach and to say, hey, coach, you figure it out. They would say, hey, let me teach you how to coach. Let me find out where you live at. Let me create an environment where you can succeed at. You know what I'm saying? So just the nature of them not engaging is like, yo, you figure it out. But how are you going to figure it out if you're in practice all day? You know what I'm saying? You're not going to figure it out. You know what I mean? You're going to be practicing, and then you're going to be playing, and then you say, okay, I got the end of the day. If this was important to them, they would do all of it. Like when I say these universities has an immense amount of resources. I don't care if you're at a mid-major. I don't care where you're at. Universities have resources. They have people. They have donors. They have they have infrastructure to teach these young people what they need to do. And the reason I get so passionate about it is because I understand the mathematics. Most people won't go to the professional level. It's just the reality of it. You know what I'm saying? So teaching yourself, I'll say this too. This is another thing. I'm pretty sure a lot of these young people they don't have a clue that their scholarships are donations. They're donated to the school, right? And like the guy who donated my scholarship to Ohio State, He owned 19 pharmacies. Just think about the education I could have got from a guy who owned 19 pharmacies. If we were connected for 3 or 4 years and then say football didn't work out, now I have an established relationship with the local business owner. Now his network becomes my network. And if he's paid for me to go to school for 3 or 4 years and I didn't make it, I'm pretty sure that he would advocate for me to basically have some sort of success after I'm done playing football because he loves the university. So listen, I could talk about this stuff all day and all night because my life was personally affected by it. But there's 1,000 ways that these young people can make money, but you have to have a group of people who want to incentivize these people to make money, and they have to want to see these people do well. And if that doesn't happen, then you won't create an environment for it.
Yeah, I wish we could talk longer about this, but we're pushing up against 7 o'clock my time, 8 o'clock Eastern. So I just wanted to thank everybody for coming out tonight. We do have time for one more question, so I'm gonna make our rounds with one final question. But before I do that, we do encourage audience members to click on the Drake Group link provided in the chat room. Kirsten's going to go ahead and post that. And at the end of our program to learn more about what we do and how you can support our efforts. And we'll be sending all of the audience members information on our end of September webinar, and our topic is still to be determined, but something to do with critical issues in college sports. So make sure you all are keeping an eye out for that. And the final question, which is a good one from Preston Tracy in the Q&A. Do you think that the NCAA will always be the governing body of collegiate athletics, or is it possible that schools will branch off and create a new NCAA? Julie, what do you think?
There's definitely a lot of ideas being thrown out right now, which are, good to be examining. Yet another reason for congressional commission to examine these issues. I don't know what the ultimate answer is on that. I don't think just a rebrand of the NCAA is really anything that's going to profoundly change anything. I think it really needs to be a deep look at the issues in college sport and think about the different issues that have already been offered in even our earlier panel last week. So I think it's possible, but I think the best way to do that is perhaps not have the NCAA do it themselves and do the self-examination at this point, but have experts in a blue ribbon commission to really study these issues that we all care about very much. And inform them and have that at the congressional level.
Brianna, what about you? What might the future of college sports look like?
I don't know. I don't know if it'll branch off. That's a big stretch. A lot of hairs will have to be pulled in that situation. It's a lot of conversations. For the most part, for my 4 years of playing college basketball, I'm sure the NCAA is going to stay the NCAA. But who knows? With enough action, with enough conversation, it could branch off. It's just a matter of, who knows? I don't have the answer.
Julian, what do you think?
I'll kind of follow behind what Maurice had stated earlier. He doesn't answer questions he doesn't have the full answer to. And so I'll kind of just follow behind that one on there.
How about you, Maurice? Do you have a crystal ball?
Yeah, I think you're watching what is going to happen in front of your face. When you're seeing the SEC expand with Texas and Oklahoma, I think that's a sign that the bigger conferences are getting with themselves and they're saying, hey, you have to understand the business of it, right? All this stuff is revenue, all this stuff is driven by the TV. So the SEC is basically saying, hey, we don't need the NCAA. We can play games ourselves. We can advertise on our network ourselves, and we'll do that. Then you had the Big Ten, the ACC, and the Pac-12 get together, and they said, hey, we're going to form an alliance, right? And what that meant was that we're going to create bowl-like games or games that basically bring in more revenue and gets us better TV contracts with each other and enlarges our fan base, our customer base, right? From the Atlantic Coast Conference to the Pac-12 and to the Midwest, right? And so you're kind of watching that in front of your face, and it's going to evolve over these years, and they're going to ask themselves, what do we need the NCAA for? And that's going to be as these teams start to morph into these two conferences, the SEC being what they are, and then the rest of the world morphing into what they are, the NCAA's effect is going to be minimized. and these people are going to sign direct TV contracts, and they're going to play their own games. And I think there'll always be there'll be a thing, but I think just the enforcement that they had before to sort of be like the hammer on side of all of college athletics, I think that's going. You'll look back 20 years from now, you'll see, in 2021, whenever this ruling came out, that this was the birth of it. You know what I'm saying? And like somebody talked about Spencer Haywood, somebody talked about MAURICE CLARETT, then they'll talk about 2021 and all of the other people who were a part of like trying to make things happen and change. And there was a ton of people before me. I'm not mentioning my name. I'm just mentioning the people that I know. But this will be the start of it, of like the NCAA not being as important as it was before. If you look at record labels now, you can shoot a video and upload it, and you don't need a record label to put your music out. You can put a movie out if you want to, and the world is changing, you know what I'm saying? And the world is going to be like that, where you can just kind of control your own destiny. That's what these conferences are going to do.
All right, excellent stuff, you all. Thank you so much for sharing your time and your expertise with us this evening. We appreciate all of our panelists, and thank you so much to our guests for attending tonight. We encourage each of you to click on the Drake Group links in the chat just to learn more about the organization and what we do and how you can support our efforts as well. And do keep an eye on your inboxes for more information about our future webinars. And that's going to do it for tonight. Thank you all so much and have a good one.
Thank you, panelists. Appreciate your time. It was great.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.